coming. I know there's been problems with the transport today, and we're only 2 people short. I'm hoping they're going to be with us very quickly. We have got a fantastically varied day for you today. I didn't say this is going to be the best day in the world, but I can promise you it's going to be the most varied. It's going to be a unique golf seminar. I don't know anybody who presents a seminar where they talk about meditation, hypnosis, quantum physics, NLP, psychology. What else? What else do we talk about? Universal laws. I mean, it's all stuff, but the point is it's all about the mind. And it's amazing how many players, professionals as well as amateurs like yourselves, will spend hours on the technical side of the game and not do anything or almost nothing about the mind. Well, golf goes together, mind and technical. Get those two together and you can all move. In fact, I can guarantee you can all move to the next level if you do your bit as well. So do you believe that by coming here today, when you leave at 5:30, you'll have learnt at least one thing that you can use? Yeah, guaranteed. And I can guarantee that. And I very much hope there'll be more than one thing, and I'm pretty sure in my own mind there will be. Do you think that you can use some of this stuff that you learned today off the golf course, you know, in your business life, your social life and all the rest of it? Yeah? Most people are saying yes? Yeah? You can. Sorry? Somebody said something? Yeah. You can. And that's the great thing about it. And that's the great thing about developing your mind. It works in all parts. It's a bit of a coincidence, really, that I'm involved in the world of golf. It was just seemed to be, the kind of door that opened when I started my, second life. In my first life, I was a doctor and an emergency surgeon, and I spent most of my life in Africa, and a lot of that was in the war zone. So, when I retired from that post, I mean, I had a neck injury and I wasn't considered not fit for jumping in and out of helicopters. I still dispute that, but anyway, looking back, best thing that happened to me. I'd seen enough of that. I didn't want to do that kind of thing again. I thought, well, I've always been interested in the mind, and this is my opportunity, and golf was the first thing. And, Paul McKenna, who I work with, he says, if you're interested in the human mind, he said you should go to ASDA on a Saturday afternoon, because he said you'll see it all. And he's right. That's when you see people behaving, under a little bit of stress, trying to do 6 things at once. And you see, when you see a golfer on a golf course, and it doesn't matter whether they're a professional or they're playing, for 50 pence a 9 holes, you see somebody under pressure and you can see the real person. And that's why business and golf are combined. That's why the corporate people spend millions on golf. Play with somebody for 5 hours, you know them. You've made a bond. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do today. There is a structure, and the first thing I want to show you is a little video. Hold on for the moment, Luce. But Einstein said, you've heard this quote, he said, the definition of insanity, can anybody remember what it was roughly?
You carry on doing what you've always been doing, you expect different results.
Exactly. So we're doing the opposite. We're going to do lots of different stuff today. And you've shown yourself to be different because you've actually signed up for something. I mean, there was no false screened marketing here. We didn't say we're going to talk about, the Bob Rotella books, much as I like Bob Rotella books, by the way. We said right out front that we're going to do some different stuff. Now, in this, we've got an awful lot of talent in this room. You're all successful in your businesses. One person told me he was retired. You send out a questionnaire and you expect a simple question like that, occupation. Well, I find out that he was up at 5 o'clock this morning working because he works as a greenkeeper. Where is he? There he is. I don't call that being retired. And Umbridge. No, I'm sorry.
If you really enjoy what you're doing, it's not work.
Good point, John. Like that.
I mean, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I get up early anyway, but I get a buzz out of putting something.
And you are absolutely right. And according to what I read, 80% of people hate their jobs. And I think that's sad, but that appears to be the truth. Now, you can either change your job or you can change the way you think about it. And there's some research that we might get on later today that often it's the way you think about something that can make the difference. And that's where, and when we get into flow experience or the zone or whatever. So anyway, there we are. We don't have anybody retired here. We have people who love their work and they love their golf. And in my book that some of you have bought, and thank you for that, I tell you there was hard selling on the book this morning, not because we need the £5, because that's what it costs me, but because Caroline knows that every book that we don't sell today, she has to carry back to Portugal. Because, you know, I'd love to do it myself, but, you know, it's the neck. So anyway, in a moment we're going to watch a video, and it's going to be different. It's going to be about Apollo 11, and for those of you who can remember Apollo 11 or have heard about it since, that was the moon shot. And it's a short clip, about 3 minutes. I give credit to the way by YouTube. I'm using some video stuff, and it's all from YouTube, and I hope that if anybody sees their video, they'll say, oh great, I'm glad these people enjoyed it. So I do give credit to YouTube and the people who put these videos on there. So the question for you while you're watching this is, what can you learn from this Apollo 11 clip that could translate to your work of golf? It's like a metaphor. This Apollo 11 thing is a metaphor for your golf. What it's going to take to get you to the next level.
40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6.
Right, now Apollo 11. What is there in that little short video? I'm talking to your right brains now, by the way. I'm not interested in logic, and I'll get onto that later. But what is there in that video that might have an analogy to your golf and where your golf can go?
It's preparation, I suppose. An enormous amount of preparation to get that off the ground.
Incredible amount of preparation. They have, you know, a zero tolerance for any kind of defect, and It's because of NASA that our, the planes we fly in are so safe. So preparation is for sure. I mean, how do you find 4 people to sit on top of a bomb like that when it hasn't been done before? It's confidence, isn't it? Or something. Yeah, good. Thank you, Dolores. Anything else?
Was it of power and energy?
Yeah.
To observe the lights.
Yeah, there was, wasn't there? Yeah, when I watch this at home, I switch off all the lights and I turn the bass right up, and I tell you, the walls shake. Yeah, because I like to imagine being on the top of that. In a previous life, I was nearly an astronaut, but I don't have time to talk to you about that. Yeah, an enormous amount of energy. Yeah, what else?
It's all funneled in one direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's focus.
I thought it was every little stage of that having to go into place for the end result for that rocket to lift off.
I like that, Wendy. We call that the aircraft carrier. If I asked Andy to build you an aircraft carrier for your next birthday, he wouldn't know where to start, and he'd probably buy you a big diamond ring instead.
Do you think so?
Well, no, I know so, because I did say I'm a hypnotist. But if I told him to put a shelf that he could put up in the wood, in there to put his charts, he could do a shelf. Well, once you've got people putting up shelves and bolting on propellers and stuff, before you know it, you've got an aircraft carrier in your back garden. So yeah, there was a plan, and people did one thing at a time. It's called project management. Absolutely, and that's important if golf is your living. Yeah, good point.
The goal to go to the moon was set 10 years before, right? And it took a long time to achieve it. So it's not overnight, but it took a long time.
That's I like that, Bernard, as well. It was Kennedy who said it, didn't he? Say make this fantastic speech or something, that an American is going to set foot on the moon or something. And because he did that, and because he captivated the American people and the money and everything else, and because he said it was possible, that's what happened. Because he had what we call a big picture. And we're going to talk about big pictures later on this morning. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I show this video to everybody that I work with, and it always gets us off to a good footing because they think this guy's crazy, and so we've got that out of the way. And if they're still a client, and nobody's gone for that door yet, I know we're okay. We can talk to each other. And the point that I make from it, which is no better or no worse than the other points that you've all made, because everybody comes up with a different answer, is the point that I keep in my mind is that how far is the moon away, roughly? Don't know. It's more than a mile, Tony. It's more than a par 5.
93 million miles.
It's not that far, fortunately. Okay, well, I'll make it easy for you. It's either one or other, because I can't remember. It's either 250,000 miles or 500,000. I don't know whether it's one way or round trip. Most of the astronauts nowadays, they go for the return tip. They don't go one way. And the other thing is that takeoff that you saw, and somebody mentioned energy, was it you, Charles? Yeah, you, Philip, yeah. Something like 95% of the fuel is burnt in the first 35 miles. And the rest of the 250,000 miles to go there is done on like a few drops. And when I used to fly medevac flights out of Africa in Lear jets go at about 45,000 feet. You're in your own world. You don't need to worry about Lufthansa because they're way below. And the pilots would tell me, he said, we're sipping drops of fuel. He said, we use all of our fuel taxiing around before we take off. And this is what it is with golf coaching. I talk to a lot of golf coaches and they all say the same thing to me. Bob Rotella says the same thing. He said, Bob Rotella says, people will read my book and they will improve. And then a month later, they'll write to me or they'll say, Bob, your book was really good. It really improved my golf. But now, I'm back to where I was. And that's where that rocket would be back to where it was, because you have to make a change. Now, by coming here, you've demonstrated you're up for the change, but there's not too much point leaving that door at 5:30 and trying things for a week and then going back to your old ways. And golf coaches say the same thing. They say, this person has got a terrible grip. I've tried to correct the grip. And, he, she, I saw them playing last week and they've gone back to the old one. And how often do you hear people say that? It's always easier to go back much easier for us to go forward. So just keep that one in mind. Any questions? No? Did I explain that okay? Cool. Anybody know who Stephen Hawking is? Yeah? Sorry? The man in the wheelchair. That's how, the poor man, that's how we always remember him. But then we also remember he's regarded as the best astrophysicist in the world. Anybody read A Brief History of Time? Is that a no, Tony? No? Anybody? No? Oh gosh, well in the 80s everybody bought it because it was one of these books that you put on your coffee table and people look at it and say, "Oh, that person must be clever." Because I don't know anybody who's actually finished it. Yeah? I mean, I tried to read it and I got to page 30. And the editors, we love editors, they said to Professor Hawking, he said, every time you put an equation in, you're going to lose half your audience. So this is the only equation. Please don't leave half of you. It's really simple, but it's quite important. I don't know who to credit this with. It might be Carl Morris. Carl Morris might have got it from somebody else. But P equals peak performance. And what we're talking about today for peak performance is the zone. Have you all experienced the zone? Even if only once or twice. Everybody? Anybody not? Cool. Well, what we want to do is experience that more often and stay there longer. So P is peak performance. That's what we're going for. And that is a result of little p, which is our potential. Now, you'll all have an idea of what your potential is, and in every case, I can pretty much guarantee that your potential is a lot higher than you think it is. And we'll get on to that because you know how to use more of your brain, etc. And you can take away from that I, which is anything that interferes with you. And in the world of golf, gosh, the list is a long list of things that can interfere with your potential. You're laughing, Andy, smiling. Whimsically, it's a long list. Start with one.
Trees, heather, water.
Trees, heather. Person you're playing. Yes. Do you play as partners, by the way, in mixed competitions?
Not in competition, we do.
Not in competition. Is there a reason for that?
Just not playing them often.
Okay. Often it's because partners, husbands and wives, can't play together. Very often. Yes, I remember you writing about heath and trees and all that kind of stuff. What other things get in the way of golf? Score, yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. A lot of you mentioned that. We'll talk about score and how to ignore the score. Sorry? Life gets in the way of everything.
It's a negative shock, isn't it? Don't go in front.
Yeah. So, you know, generally speaking, I don't like to spend a lot of time talking about negative stuff. But in golf, you know, we want to increase your potential or make you realize how big your potential is. And we want to decrease that. So we will be talking about both of those things. Now. Caroline is going to come and assist me now for a moment, please. I just want to spend a couple of minutes now on going around the room and clarifying with you what your single objective for being here is. And the key word here is single, because I know you're going to say, well, actually, I've got three. But no, we haven't got time for three. We can talk about three in the coffee break. So let's start on this side. Bernie, is it okay if I call you Bernie?
Sure.
Thank you.
Just want to be a happy golfer.
Happy. Okay.
I will be more consistent.
Sorry?
Consistent.
Simon, consistent? Oh, I like that.
To improve my mental strength during the round.
Mental strength. Yeah, thanks, Philip. Gary?
Steady, same as consistent.
Consistent. Okay, put another tick by consistent for that. Wendy, another tick for that. Andy?
Yeah, it's mental.
Mental. Yeah. Charles?
Improve my concentration.
Did somebody say, by the way, that Charles is, I think, the best golfer we have here? If you measure these things in terms of numbers. Now, there's an important point here. You can see this company, NLP. We'll talk a little bit about NLP, but one good thing about NLP is that if you want to be good at something, you study somebody who's brilliant at it. You don't try and reinvent stuff yourself. How many times do you see people on the driving range saying, oh, let me try this? Look at somebody who's good. And right now, Charles is the best golfer in this room. I told him at the beginning, this puts a very big responsibility on him, because when we leave here, we all want to be just like you. Sorry? I'm going to come on to that this afternoon. Who's your favourite golfer? Who would you most like to be in the world of golf?
Well, it used to be Tiger, but
Yeah, we're going to talk a little about Tiger.
probably. I really like Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Tony?
Consistency.
Consistency. John?
Concentration, because to me that equals.
Concentration. Put that, yeah, thank you. Dolores? Consistent also. John?
I've come to improve my business options.
Business options.
Therapist.
Okay. I love that. I said to him while we were checking in, it's great to have a competitor here. but fortunately, you know, we'll talk this afternoon about the way the universe is constructed, and people always think, you know, if I'm rich, I feel guilty about it because it means there's somebody in another country who's starving, and well, of course, that's terrible. But you know, we can all actually, fortunately, make money, and the banks have finally got onto this quantitative easing, or printing money, as I call it. If they just need to print more and more and more, make sure that it goes round to everybody. So there's plenty of work for you and I, John. In my book, there's a, which you've either read or hopefully you will read, there's a question that I put, I think, in the introduction, and I raise it several times, and I raise it in the last page, and I say, is golf a sport, an obsession, a compulsion, or an addiction? Anybody know the answer to that? All of them. I mean, I don't know the answer, that's why I've left it. But I can tell you for sure, I've worked with people who've been on the edge of suicide over their golf. It's crazy, isn't it? But it's true. That's what golf can do to you. And I've seen people in the moments of most exquisite joy because, you know, they've won a competition or scored a hole in one. Now, who was the person who said has never scored a hole in? Charles. Charles. You hope to.
I haven't.
You haven't. Anybody who's not got one? Okay. Well, look. If we don't do anything else today, we can put that one right.
You'll buy the drinks.
But I didn't tell you how far the hole's going to be away. No, we're going to talk about that. Well, where was I? I do get. I lose my thread a bit. Where did I get to? Sorry, Greg. Yeah.
My own golf, really, to be more consistent, get less angry.
Less angry. Okay, put anger down there, and consistency as well. I'm going to let you have two because they were good ones. Greg, you came a little late. I know there was transport and everything. Just tell me, what do you do in life?
I'm a personal trainer, but I'm studying golf conditioning.
Brilliant, excellent. So you and John are obviously going to work some kind of deal together over lunch. And just remember who put you together, because I get 15% of the gross. Okay, yeah, thanks, Caroline. I like, I think it was Bernie who put this one up first. We're going to talk a lot about happiness, because I can tell you for one thing, happy golfers, generally speaking, are better golfers. There are some miserable people, we see them on the tour, not many fortunately, and they actually do manage to play good golf, but I think they make their lives a lot harder for themselves than they can be. I think the easiest way to play better golf is to be a happy golfer. And so we'll look at some of the things that can make people unhappy and some of the things that can make people happy. Consistency. A lot of you in your questionnaires, this is the one thing you were looking for, and I'm sorry those went out rather late, and some of you probably haven't even seen them in your inbox yet. They probably went straight into your trash folder or something. But anyway, I'd had two-thirds of you did get it in time. And I can answer this one right now. The reason why you are not finding consistency is that you're not being consistent. Is that okay? It's fine. Do you need any further explanation of that? Or you could just accept that? So if I tell you to be more consistent, can we move on? Not quite. Okay, well I was hoping somebody might say that, because it would leave a big hole in the program at 11 o'clock. So we'll talk, I think it's 11 this afternoon before lunch, I think we talk about consistency. Because I can tell you something, you will not be consistent unless you become consistent. And what I'm getting, of course, is the pre-shot routine. And I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to tell you the real inside story of how Louis Oosthuizen won the Open last year. I know there's been lots of stories in the press, but the credit for that, well, a large part of the credit, goes to his mind coach, Carl Morris, who I know and is a friend of mine. And he has given me permission to tell the true story. Now, whether he's held something back from me, he probably has, but I can tell you more than you'll find in the newspapers.
Can I just ask you one thing?
Yeah.
When you took out the round of golf, in your mind, how many hours would you ballpark? Are we talking 4 hours for an average golfer? On a, you know,
It gets longer and longer. You know, to be quite honest, I reckon on 5 hours.
So one of the things I find is that you dip and trough, you know, because peak and trough, because obviously concentration to keep for 4 hours, in my mind anyway, is hard.
Yeah.
There's other things going on. So that's something I want to learn, because obviously I know
Yeah.
I can play 3 or 4 good holes and then all of a sudden something goes. I suppose I might then be dwelling on what's happened, but
Yep.
obviously I can look forward. But to keep consistent, you know, for that period of time.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I mean, that's great, Gary. And I can tell you something up front. You will not keep your concentration for 4 hours. Any of you cricketers? Mark Atherton, do you remember Mark Atherton scoring his 3-day century in South Africa against Alan Donald at his fiercest? I think how many hours did he bat for? 8 or something. And he said there is no way. People said power of concentration. He said there's no way I can concentrate for 8 hours. He said I concentrate for about 4 seconds at a time. He said, and I have an on-off switch. He looks around the crowd. And golfers, we'll talk about an on-off switch. Yeah, I mean, that's why golfers get tired and bad-tempered and why they start hitting poor shots. Okay, thank you for the question. Mental, yeah, obviously we're going to talk about business option. Anger's a good one. Can you tell me a little more about that, Greg?
I'm not so bad at the moment, but when I was younger I used to like throw my clubs in ponds and all sorts.
Yeah.
But as I get older, it's not as bad, but I still get really angry afterwards.
Yeah.
When I leave the golf course and I can't speak to people.
Yeah. Well, you know, yeah. Well, you know, I thank you for your honesty, you know, because a lot of people wouldn't share that, but fortunately many of my clients do share it. And I've got good news for you. When you get to my age, you still throw the clubs, but they don't go so far. Neither does the ball. But one of my, I had a seminar, and there was a guy about your age, a very talented golfer, and we went around the table, and he said, "I'm here for anger management." I thought, "Oh, okay, tell me more." He said, "Well, I throw my wedge further than I hit the ball." And the head professional we were co-chairing this seminar, he said, "Yeah, it's true." He said, "I had a teaching round with him for 9 holes." He said, "After 6 holes, I walked in." And so I said to this guy, you know, this is quite serious, you know, throwing clubs like that and worse. I said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "Well, I'm a teacher. I work with small children, with special needs children." I thought, okay, every seminar is different. Anyway, I've got to say that this gentleman's name, and he doesn't mind me telling this story, by the way, he went to Barbados on holiday and he took one of my audiobooks with him. And it was when we had the volcano ash last Easter or something, the year before. And he got stranded in Barbados for 2 weeks. Can you imagine how bad that would be? And all he had was my audiobook, 30 minutes. And he listened to it every day. And when he came back, everybody said he was a changed man. His wife said, "What have you done to Lee? He's like a human being." The golf coach said, "What have you done to Lee? He never gets upset. I try and make him upset now, and he doesn't get upset." And his handicap has come down to almost scratch as well. So he was a good man. He is a good man, was a good man. And I tell you, if you wanted a teacher, you would not find a better teacher for your kid. But somewhere the tension came up and it was on the golf course it came out. So we'll talk about that, but for sure.
They're all interlinked in my, as I say for me, because I get angry and, you know, I just don't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And you can see my finger mark on the club handle.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm not concentrating.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing my pre-shot routine. That's why I get angry. Because I get angry, I forget to concentrate and I don't do it. And it's just,
Yeah.
it normally takes 2 or 3 holes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got to stop. One of my friends say to me, "Why don't you slow it down?" To which they get told in Anglo-Saxon that they can go.
Yeah.
But then it does actually, you know. And I think it starts because you're not playing good golf and you're not playing your good golf because you're not concentrating on that pre-shot all that.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle.
Yeah.
Golf has the possibility of being a very frustrating game. And that's why we call this Zen. I'm going to explain what Zen is, just in case anybody's worried, and I think if you were worried you wouldn't have come. But this does not mean that I want you to wear orange robes and chant. I mean, you can, but you won't see me doing it. But what I would like you to do is to recognize the importance of golf in the overall scheme of things. And again, I'm quoting Bob Rotella. His ideas and methods are very different to mine, but I do respect him for what he's done. And you know, how many majors has he won in the last 3 years with his clients? And what he says on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is the most important, 0 is the least important, and 10 is critical importance. He said no golf shot should ever be more than a 4. So why would you beat yourself up over a 4? But golfers do. Almost all golfers do. And a big part of the work that I do with tour players and club golfers is on this subject. So yeah, so again, Greg, thanks for raising that, mate. Right, now, we're going to do our first test. I better warn you right now, by the way, that there's an examination in the last session this afternoon. You can't leave at lunchtime. You have to sit the exam. It'll be the toughest exam you've ever done. Public humiliation for all the failures. Of course not. It's going to be a little group thing. You're going to be in small groups, and I'm giving you a real live question to answer. But now the first one is, Caroline is going to pass around a questionnaire. And this is where I introduce the concept of left brain and right brain. How are we doing? We're nearly finished? Very good. Who finished first? Dolores finished first. Well done. You're the star so far. But remember, stars often can't get any higher, they can only fall. But not in your case. You're going to be the exception. You're going to be a shooting star. We've still got a sound system. Oh, that's Lucy. We all done? Cool. Okay, please add up all the number of ticks you put in the right box, and then just write the total on your cards, on your sheet somewhere. Okay, Bernie, how many have you got on the right? You got 5. Simon? You've got 5.
Yeah, I got 6.5.
That's 10. Philip, isn't it? 6.5, you say 7. Yep. Gary? 8. Wendy?
14.
Ooh, 14.
Could be a problem,
It's like everything in life. It could be a problem, could be an opportunity.
It is if I'm only 5.
You're a 5.
Opportunity.
It's Andy, isn't it? Yeah. Charles? 7. 7. You're around about there. Tony? 13. Blimey, almost as crazy as Wendy. John? 5. Dylan? 14. You're about here somewhere as well, I think, aren't you? Oh God, I'm losing my memory. It's John, isn't it? John. And Greg.
Full house, 15.
Wow. Wow, what does this mean? What do you think it means?
2 totally separate groups of people in this room.
Yes, there are. There are indeed. And do we have anybody in this room who's a schizophrenic? Why, has somebody been saying that I am? No. And even if we did, it's not a problem. But the fact is that you're living in a self-deluded world because you are all schizophrenics. Schizophrenic means, quite simply, a split brain. And this exercise we've done is left and right brain. Now, there isn't a line down the middle of your brain, and on the left side it means that you're very logical, you like mathematics and all that kind of stuff. We're a mixture of both, we're a blend. And you know, now that we can put people in MRI scanners, we can see which bits of their brain light up doing different things. And but this is your personality, and Rotella would call this, he wouldn't use left and right brain, although a lot of sports psychologists do. He would say your left brain is your conscious mind and the right brain is your unconscious mind, or your subconscious mind, he sometimes says. Is that clear? Now, where do you think we play golf? Left brain? On the right? Both? I think we've... Okay, well, we've covered all the options there, haven't we? And as I said from the start, there is no right and wrong answer. But just out of interest, who thinks we play golf in the left side, with our left brain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
For me, it's the left brain is the trainer side, and I'll try and get the other bit.
Yeah, okay. Who thinks we play golf in the right brain?
Best golf.
Hit the ball with the right brain.
Play your best golf.
Okay, so about 3, and we're losing track of the scores here, it doesn't matter. How many think it's a combination, a more or less equal combination of both? Yeah. Well, you know, the room is split into 3 fairly equal things here. And you gave the best answer because you said, well, you use your right brain to hit the ball with. Is that what you said, or something like that?
So I use my left brain to assess the wind, check where the hazards are, then focus the right brain when I hit the ball.
Yeah, so your left brain does the analysis. Now, there are golfers who would argue with that, really good golfers, but I agree with you, actually. I mean, you've got to know the yardage and the wind and the slope. But some of the best golfers say, I never think about that because I just know. I just know that that's a soft wedge or something. Some of the very best golfers, because they're using feeling, but there's not many people who can do that. But hitting the ball is, I would suggest to you, right brain. You have to trust. And the right brain is very trusting. It's the childlike part of your brain. And I've got a client who's called John, and I publish a monthly newsletter, by the way, and please do feel free to sign up for it. I don't sell email addresses and stuff like that. You do get a monthly newsletter and various other things. But anyway, this bloke John wrote into me, and I published his letter. When I read it, I did actually fall off my chair. I laughed so much. He's got a highly developed left brain, which is very self-critical, and he's given him a name. I can't remember what his name is. It might be, he said, I've named him Cyril. It's not Cyril, but for the sake of the story, because I play with somebody called Cyril, who's a friend of mine, but he's extremely irritating sometimes. So I call my brain Cyril, and I let him work out the yardage and the wind, and I let him tell me what club to choose. And then I say, Cyril, would you go down the fairway and see where the ball lands? And that gets rid of him. And then the right brain can take over and he makes his shot. And that lovely little visualization he did knocked about 6 shots off his handicap. I'm not suggesting you should do that, but we're talking about left brain and right brain anyway. Because you need to be left brain. You know, those are the skills that you bring to your job and to everything else. All you need to do, all you can choose to do, is just move a little bit in that direction. I tell you, if we were all like Tony and Greg and Wendy and John, we would be living in an anarchic world. And people like Leonardo da Vinci and whatever, these are highly creative people. And that doesn't mean to say these people are not creative. They are, but they're creative using a different part of their brain. If I was wanting a business partner, first of all, I'd probably want 2, because I'd want one of these guys working for me, or ladies, and I'd want one of these as well. And those of you who are in business, when you're putting a board together or a project team, the tendency is to choose people that are like you, because you like people like you. As a manager or whatever, it's probably the worst thing you can do. It's probably to put a couple of people you don't like on that team. Yeah? Do you all do that in business? No. It's a great test. It's a great test. And some companies, you know, go to great lengths to do that, but I tell you, it's really, really difficult. Because when there's a boss, the tendency for the boss is always to have people that he trusts. And he trusts people that have halos. They call it the horns or halo. So you need a few horns and you need a few halos. Anyway, there are times when these guys and ladies are going to have to move just a little this way, and there are times when you guys are going to have to move a little this way. It's all a matter of balance. I was giving a seminar like this a couple of years ago to 200 lady policewomen, which was interesting, and I asked the assistant chief constable, he said, are there any areas you don't want me to go? And he said, look, the ladies have planned this program, they asked you to speak, and I said, you know that I'd talk about flaky stuff like hypnosis and meditation. He said, well, I don't care. So we did the same thing with them, and I just thought at the time, you know, wouldn't it be great if all of these ladies were totally right brain? I mean, what would happen to policing in Leicestershire? I mean, it would be fun, but I don't think it would help the crime stats very much. So actually, you know, just as these people, this is why people get married and have friends and partners and relationships and stuff, because we're not designed to live on our own. That's the bottom line. That's the truth. We all need somebody. And somebody like this would probably help from somebody like that. And definitely somebody over here would help from somebody like that. Harrington, apparently, is way up here, and his wife, Caroline, is probably somewhere here because she's very practical. So what can influence our thoughts and emotions? Well, there's all this stuff that's coming in from the environment. And making things simple, we only have 5 sensory inputs into our head. What would they be? Sight, what we see. Sound, what we hear. Feeling, what we feel. Smell, what we smell. Taste, what we taste. So we've got 5. Now when we get on to talk about quantum energy, we may well find that there's 50, but I'll leave that for after lunch when you're nice and sleepy and you'll just say, oh yeah, that sounds sensible. So there we are, we've got our 5 emotions. So we're starting to get some ideas on how we can control what goes into the zone place here. It's our 5 senses and how we can play around with them. Now, you're not a passenger in your own body. You're driving. You can drive your 5 senses to a certain extent. And then there's inputs from the rest of the body. And posture. I'll talk about that stuff later. But all the feelings that come from the way we stand, all of the stuff that's going on. You are living in the best machine that has ever been created. You don't think about it, you take everything for granted. Just to give, you know, the name of this hormone called insulin. Insulin controls your blood sugar. You can drink 10 pints of beer, you can have a huge English breakfast, you can stuff yourself stupid with chocolate, you can starve yourself. But your blood sugar stays pretty much the same, 24 hours a day. Because it has to, because that's what the brain and everything else survives on. And that's just one example. There's millions of examples of your body being in perfect balance. Basically, what your body is doing is producing every microsecond of every day the perfect golf swing. How about that? I did mention that this P equals little p. That little p is a lot bigger because you're thinking of potential in terms of what you can do with your conscious brain. Today is about what more you might be able to do with your unconscious mind. Right, now I mentioned the Tiger video. Now, I know that Tiger is, we've got to be careful what we say about Tiger at the moment. So we remember him at the moment for what he was, not for what he is right now. I would like to think that one day he will be the person that we do remember from the past. I don't see that happen. Well, again, I shouldn't make predictions, but 2 years ago on video, I said that Tiger would never win a major. Now everybody would say, well, of course he won't. But then I can assure you they didn't, because he was expected to go on, and he was only 2 short of Jack Nicklaus's record. And I predicted he wouldn't.
Was that before his struggles?
Yeah, it was around about last October, 2 years ago.
Before it was all public?
Yeah, before all that. Now, I have no inside knowledge. I have no inside knowledge. I've never met him. I've never seen him. He's probably one of the few of the top golfers in the world that I haven't seen or spoken to in the flesh, but I haven't. So I have no inside knowledge. I was only going again on what I said earlier. All I could see, I was looking at his posture and I was listening to what he was saying. That's all I had to go on. And I'll talk more about that later. But anyway, this is still the best video that I have seen, and I watch it time and time again, and every time I watch it I get something more from it. And so it is about 5 minutes. It's the longest video we have today, and so please do put your attention on it and think, jot down or file away in your head just a few salient points that you get from it that, kind of are shock and awe, because I'm going to ask you all after, and we'll just have a quick discussion before we close for coffee.
When I come down and stay with him at the Junior World Championships, we do some sessions. It was pretty cool of how it helped me understand a different part of my creativity.
Tiger was tremendous because he has such a gifted creative imagination.
I could never control it. I mean, I couldn't fathom someone saying, visualize a golf shot. Well, I see this ball going every which way. My creative mind would never see me a golf shot doing this or doing this. My mind would not let me to do that. It's going all over the place. So he said, why don't you just feel it? Use your hands, use your fingers, use your body awareness to harness your creativity that way and come up with an answer. And he was very instrumental in teaching me how to control my creative mind.
I sort of used to chuckle when everybody would say, oh, wow, that Tiger, he hits it so far. And I'd sort of gently say, well, he does. He's long off the tee, and he's got a great power game. I said, but the genius of Tiger Woods is his creative imagination in the short game.
I tend to have these blackout moments where I don't remember. I know I was there, but I don't remember actually performing the golf shot.
The athlete in the peak performance zone is really in a kind of a heightened state of awareness, an absorbed focus. There's an element of relaxation response that goes on in there, and they're always in the here and the now with kind of a clear, uncluttered mind, just absorbed in the moment, letting the performance happen rather than thinking about or helping the performance happen.
I get so entrenched on the moment, I guess my subconscious might take over. I don't know what the whole terminology is, but there are many putts or many shots where I don't remember hitting. I remember seeing the ball flight. I remember preparing for the shot, pulling the club out of the bag, and once I'm behind the ball or I'm walking in the shot, I don't remember until I see the ball leave. It's a weird thing.
You're looking to get that focus and that process to take place within a time frame. I call it the 40-second sanctuary of the pre-shot routine.
The more intense the situation gets, the calmer I feel, the more things slow down. It's a weird sensation. It's hard to kind of articulate on it. For some reason, the last few holes take forever, but they may be happening a lot faster for some reason, but they seem like they're taking longer. There are a lot of times where I don't hear noise. I don't hear anything. It's just I've become so enthralled in that particular moment, hitting a shot, performing a task, and being mentally prepared for that shot. And it's almost as if I get out of the way because of the training. When my father was in the Special Forces, there were a lot of times when he said the training would just take over, and it was as if my body was doing the work and I was just sitting back and watching it do it. And that's what it feels like when you're in golf. Well, for me, is that it just happens. I just get out of my own way and let the training just take over.
So there we are, there's Tiger as he was. And Tiger doesn't give much away in front of a camera generally, but I thought he was being pretty open and candid there. So what did we think of that? Interesting. What was it?
He said something very big. He said about the training. Lets the training go out.
He lets the training take over.
What he was doing was practicing, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you come to actually execute it for real, you know you can do it.
Yeah. He said his father was in the Special Forces. The Special Forces spend probably 98% of their time training for stuff that might not even happen. So when it does happen, they just do what they're trained to do. They don't.
His senses are not, most people have visual senses, don't they? Say you can teach him to visualise a shot. He can't do that, he has to feel it. So that's probably why he's just had a complete and utter nightmare there, because his feelings, if he was visual, he could probably get rid of those feelings or decrease them. But is it right that because he's a kinesthetic, feely person, this is why his golf game's gone to pieces, because he's got these feelings that are coming in?
It may well be. I mean, he certainly is a feeling person, or kinesthetic, as you say. I'm not sure that I'd agree that he's not visual.
Did he say that?
Well, I've had the benefit of seeing this hundreds of times. I think what he actually says is he actually puts his hands in front of his eyes like a kid would. He said, "I see so much," you know, and a lot of the top golfers are like that. A lot of the top golfers that I work with have been labelled as dyslexic or something, and an author who's written the best-selling book on dyslexia called Seeing Spells Achieving or something, I had a phone call with him and I asked him, I said, is it coincidence that so many of the top golfers I work with are dyslexic? And he says no, because dyslexics are highly visual people. The problem is they see too much. It's not that they don't see enough. Now, I don't know much about dyslexia, I just passed that one on. But I think my guess is that what Tiger has learned is to, all this stuff that's blinding him, he's using his power of his mind, he's probably focused on the one picture. And there was a client that I worked with who's done very well since, who, in a position of pressure, like on the 18th tee when he's leading the tournament, you could tell by looking at him, he starts getting jerky and he takes the club quickly and everything about him is and the drive, you know, he's lost a winning position several times from that. And when I've talked to him, he's a very visual person. He tells me he's constructing all of these scenarios of what's going to happen when club meets ball. So I've just told him, I said, okay, well, imagine you're in a TV studio and you can see all of the different cameras, you know, with what they're recording up there, and in the middle is the big screen that the editor's controlling. I said, you're in charge. I want you, you know, to blow up that big screen of the shot that you want to play, not what all these other pictures are about. Well, I don't know whether it worked with him or not, but something has worked. Who was the other guy in the video?
I guess he was my coach.
As a guess? Yeah, it's a right guess. Anybody know his name? He does actually say his name, but he says it really, really quickly. That is Dr. Jay Brunza, who my understanding is that he was a naval psychiatrist and a friend of Earl's, and allegedly, because he's a psychiatrist, allegedly he worked with Tiger on hypnotic elements. Now, I do not know whether that's true or not, but what I do know is that Tiger is brought up as a Buddhist. He says that he meditates every day, and in this afternoon when we talk about hypnosis and meditation, you know, I'm going to suggest to you that there's not much difference. They're a form of mind control. They're slightly different, but the end result is much the same. So some people say that Tiger has had a lot of hypnotic training. Some people say that he hasn't. I don't know one way or the other. But what I do know is that he's had some kind of a lot of mind training. All right, are we ready for coffee?
Yeah.
Have we had a good morning?
Yeah.
Okay, you got half an hour. And we'll see you at 11. Thank you.